Hey there, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuchsa with Foote Title Group, where we not only handle your home closing and make that a really simple process for you, but we also protect your home ownership. So this morning I wanted to talk to you about something that I talk about a lot in different types of ways, but it just is one of those things that we need to talk about because people just don't make the time to get around and take care of this. And I see it all the time, even with people in my profession that don't take the time to make sure that all these pieces are in the right place. So first, let me say, if you're tuning in, thank you so much for taking your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to the things that we try to share with you to try to make the real estate closing process simpler for you. Hey there, Chris. How are you? And how is that handsome new guy? Hope you and your wife are doing great. Thank you for tuning in. So, and if you are tuning in on the replay, I really appreciate your time as well. I know everybody can't get on at the same time, and I totally understand that, and I just really appreciate you taking the time. If you find the information we talk about valuable, please click the share button at the bottom of the screen, because then you can share it with people that you know that I don't know, because at the end of the day, sharing is caring, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share. So let's talk about this for a minute because I see this happening all the time. And as I said, particularly I've seen it recently with people in our industry, and it really bothers me because people don't understand the ramifications of this. Hey there, Jeff. How are you this morning? So if you purchase a piece of property, and at the time you purchase that piece of property, you are single, you're in a situation where maybe it's not time to add a significant other to that piece of property. Maybe some things with the mortgage require that you can't have someone else on the mortgage at the time you do the closing and you take ownership of that property. What I want to talk to you about this morning is, let's say you bought a property and it's a rental property and you bought it before you were even had a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a significant other, and you were the only person that was on the title or the ownership of that property. And then you met someone, fell in love, decided to get married. Maybe you didn't decide to get married. Maybe you have a significant other, you've been together for 10 years, but you never went back and added that person to the ownership of that property. The reason that this could be a concern is, particularly if you're not married, if something happens to you suddenly, and you know, none of us like to talk about this, but it happens, and it happens, the older I get, the more frequently it seems to happen. And you just don't know, you think, oh, I'll get around to this, I'll take care of this, it's not that big a deal, nothing's gonna happen to me, and it does. I saw somebody a couple of days ago with this crazy weather that we're having that posted a picture of his significant other, not married, having a auto situation. A piece of ice flew off the back of a tractor trailer, hit her windshield. Luckily, she wasn't injured, but her car windshield was demolished. The front of the car was demolished. It was a bad scene, and it could have went really bad. Well, if they are significant others, they decided not to get married, but they've been together forever, and in their mind, they might as well be married. And I know a lot of people that are like this. Maybe it's your second time around and you decide not to get married. Awesome. Totally good. Your situation works for you. That's absolutely perfect. But if your intention is to make sure that the piece of property that you own, I talked about in the preface that we're trying to talk about a rental. This really applies to any piece of property that you have. But let's say you have, a piece of property that you purchased, you have a significant other, you're not married, you didn't add them to the ownership, and this scenario happens, but you were killed in an auto accident very suddenly. The people that are left to pick up the pieces, and no one can tell what your intentions were, no matter how much they thought they knew, unless it's on paper, in writing. And so what I'm talking about specifically on this is, let's say you had, as I prefaced it, a rental property. Let's say you were married and you didn't, you went and purchased a rental property long before you were married. You got married, you and your spouse bought a piece of property, built a house, beautiful house. You're both on that ownership. So if something happens to you, then that property will automatically go to your spouse. But the rental property that you had, let's say that you had this piece of property, maybe it was a townhouse you lived in, and when you got married, you decided to rent that townhouse out, and now you have another piece of property as I said, you and your spouse built a home, you live in it, you're both on the ownership, something happens to you suddenly, your spouse automatically owns that piece of property as long as you own it as tenants by the entirety and you're married. Now, let's say in that scenario, that townhouse that you kept, that you used to live in, but you're renting it out, you never added your spouse to that piece of property. And you never did because you thought, oh, whatever, it's, just my rental property and it's no big deal. She'll get it anyway. He'll get it anyway. Well, he may get it anyway. She may get it anyway. But if you don't add her to the ownership or add him to the ownership of that property, they have to go through a lot. And they're already dealing with a lot with you having passed away suddenly. Or even if it wasn't a sudden situation. Hey there, Mark. How are you this morning? Thanks for tuning in. Please give love to my cousin and all your family. Hey there, Marie. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you this morning. So if, let's say you're married and that you have that rental property and you didn't add your spouse to it. If something happens to you and you pass away, your spouse now has to go through the estate process for that ownership. Now, the marriage laws say that in certain states that if you were a spouse to someone and they passed away, the real estate more than likely is going to come to you. But you have to go through opening an estate process, going through the vetting of all of that information, posting a bond, going through the notifications, all of the pieces that have to happen through an estate process. Just because you never got around to adding your spouse to that other piece of property. Now, let's say that you own that piece of property, same scenario, you found that person that you can't live without. You had a piece of property that was not a rental, a townhouse you lived in, then you decided to rent it out because you're going to build a new home. You guys have been living together forever. Everyone in the world considers you married, but you're not legally married, and something happens to you. Now that person, because you're not married and you never added that person to the ownership of that piece of property, now that person has to go through the estate process, but now they don't automatically, in certain states, get the ownership of that property as going through this estate process. They now have to have discussions and communications and negotiations with anyone else that has an ownership interest in your estate. Now, I know that's not what you want, but that's what happens. You have to add someone to the title to that property, or then they have to deal with that ownership after also dealing with the horrific accident that happened or the horrible loss that they're feeling, even if it was a known situation and someone passed after a long illness. If you didn't make those plans for them, now they've got to deal with that after having lost you, and that's a really sad and scary thing. So the ownership doesn't automatically pass if you're not on the title of the property. There are some steps that have to happen. In Maryland, these steps actually have to take place. Now in Virginia, if you did it in your will and you didn't add them to the ownership, then it's a little less complicated because it goes through the will process. In Maryland, it has to go through an estate process. And again, at the end of the day, set your intentions out, just like you would if you wanted to make sure that everybody knew what happened if you had an accident and you needed to be put on life support. If you've taken the time to do that, you need to take the time to make sure that all of the things that you own have the right direction and are planning to go in the right direction. God forbid if you were flying home from a weekend vacation and you both were killed. Does anybody know what you intended to do with that property? And without you having added that significant other or that person you care about so much or your spouse to the ownership of that property, then there is no absolute, and the estate process has to happen. So I really encourage you to sit down and talk with the people that you love and make sure that everybody understands what you want to do and that you get this stuff written down. I recently had a colleague of mine who very suddenly lost a spouse, and although the home that they live in had all of the proper ownership set up, they had several rental properties that aren't. And I was talking to another colleague more recently, same kind of thing. I talk about the rental property specifically because those are the pieces that don't seem as important because it's not the house you live in. So, and I just really encourage you to look at that because those houses are just important because they're part of your estate, and it's real estate that you're going to have that surviving person is going to have to address and deal with. So you know you don't want that to happen, and you know you want to make sure that everything goes in the right place and that it's one less thing that they have to worry about, that real estate is taken care of. Particularly when you're talking about people that aren't married and that have been together forever, you want to make sure that that person that survives you, if you love them enough to have them living with you and to have them involved in all the rest of the things that you have, then you want to make sure that they have one less thing to worry about if something happens to you suddenly. And there's no way to control or know when that thing's going to happen. So I just encourage you to do that. As a title company, one of the things that we can do is help you with that. We can help you add someone to the ownership of the property. We can answer questions. We can help you get you in the right direction. I'm not an estate planning attorney, but I do know if you have an estate planning attorney who's given you some direction, more than likely they will help you with that deed. But if you don't, it's a really simple add. We can go about adding someone to the ownership of the property for you. If they're not a immediate family relative, then the county is more than likely going to charge you some recording costs. It may be a little bit of an expense, but in the long run, it's a whole lot easier than forcing someone to deal with this after your sudden passing or not sudden passing. So hopefully that helped you a little bit. You know, this is true for any piece of property, not just a rental, but the rental came up to me because I have seen so many people that have had this experience recently, and I just wanted to share some things that we needed to talk about. So, hey, Anita, hope you guys are having an awesome time down there in warm, sunny Key West. Really a little bit jealous. Hey, John, how are you this morning? Thanks for tuning in. I know you guys are getting ready for your meeting, and I appreciate you taking the time. Hey there, Miss Lisa. Good to see you this morning. Thank you guys for tuning in. So hopefully I helped you a little bit with some thoughts. You know, what I always try to do is give you information that maybe doesn't answer a question that you have right now, but maybe somebody you know is experiencing this, or maybe somebody you know doesn't have this experience right now and you want to have a conversation with them so they do. So if you found this information valuable, please share it with the people that you are friends with on Facebook. It helps me a lot. Reach out to people that don't know us and maybe we can get them some information that they need. So hopefully I helped you a little bit. Hey, I wanted to touch base with you. I told you guys at the beginning of the year that my word for the year is execute. And execute means that every month we are providing you with some more content, some good information that can help you answer questions and hopefully get you in the right direction if you have some thoughts or some things going on. So for the month of March, we actually launched a brochure that we have. It's a pamphlet that is called 73 Ways You Could Lose Your Home. And it has 73 different things that could happen that could affect your home ownership after you go to closing. So go to our website, you can download it, look through our social media, the ads are popping up everywhere. Email me or message me if you want a copy of it. We can get you the information so you can download it. We can actually mail you a hard copy. You can download it yourself to review. Ask any questions that you want about that, but it does talk about 73 different ways that potentially someone could challenge your home ownership after you take ownership once you go to closing. So it'll also be on our website on buyers and sellers and realtor lender tabs for downloads under the resources. So the other thing is our welcome home guide. If you know somebody moving into the Southern Maryland or the Northern Neck of Virginia area, those welcome home guides are also on our website, and they are valuable resources that you can download or request a hard copy that we can mail to you that give you contact information for all of the local services that you'd need moving into that community. So hopefully we helped you with a little bit of information today. I love talking to you guys, and I look forward to talking to you every Tuesday and Thursday on Coffee with Connie. So please share the information. Hope you guys have an amazing day. Stay warm out there, and I'll talk to you again soon. I'm Connie Foote with Foote Title Group, where we not only handle your closing and make it simple for you and easy to understand, but we also protect your home ownership. Have a great day, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.